Hello everybody, Dr. Lindsay Bira here, clinical health psychologist, bringing you Mindful Minutes, sponsored by Mind Science Foundation, to give us all the space to practice building emotional wellness during this crazy time that we're in. So join me. Today is the first one, and what I want to talk about is just the basics. What is mindfulness? So mindfulness is a brain skill, a brain exercise, and also a practice and a state of being. We can practice this both informally as well as formally. A lot of people don't know that. Also, mindfulness is not about achieving a super positive state. Sometimes mindfulness is simply about being intensely aware of the struggle that we're having, but not adding any extra difficult layers on top of that. As a psychologist, what I see a lot of when we see mental health symptoms is that there's a certain reality that brings some natural negative emotion, but then there's a lot of judgment for the self or for other people, towards other people, about that negative emotion. We want to peel that layer off because it just makes it way heavier than it needs to be. We want to honor the natural struggle in a non-judgmental way. So this is why mindfulness is so helpful, because it's starting to help us regulate our emotions. If we think about what's happening in the brain, let me get my brain model here. So mindfulness is a frontal lobe skill. This is what kind of differentiates us as humans, and we can all get better at using our frontal lobes. Our frontal lobe regulates our attention, our emotion, and our behavior. So our emotion, something like anxiety, comes from the limbic system, kind of more inside the brain. And as soon as we have an emotional flare up, if our frontal lobe can kick in, then it kind of controls that anxiety, that anger, that even sadness. It kind of controls that and keeps that at bay. Something like mindfulness is literally some brain exercise. I like to call it bicep curls for the frontal lobe. Each time we do it, we're exercising those neurons and actually gaining emotion regulation control. So let's break mindfulness down for a second. A very simple definition, it sounds very simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds, is paying attention on purpose without judgment. So we want to pay attention to the present moment with exactly what's going on, both internally, so our internal state, kind of how we feel, sometimes even some physical sensations. We also want to pay attention to the exact moment we're in externally with all of our senses, things that we hear, things that we see, what other people are doing, everything that makes up the auditory and visual landscape of exactly where we are at any point in time. So paying attention is the first one in the present moment. The second part is on purpose. So another myth of mindfulness is that we should achieve like no thoughts, and that if you can't control your mind, then mindfulness isn't for you. And actually, your mind wandering is the exact thing that we want to happen, because then we can catch where it goes and do the mindfulness skill to bring it back. That is the bicep curl of the frontal lobe every single time we do that. So we have paying attention to the present moment on purpose. So this means whenever we notice our mind wanders, and sometimes it happens outside of our awareness, we take note of that, we're curious about where it went, and then we bring it back to exactly what we're focusing on. So paying attention to the present moment on purpose, intentionally. And then the third one, maybe the hardest one, is without judgment. We want to strip the judgments that we place on things. We don't want to judge anything as positive, because then we try to hold on to it. Whenever it's gone, we want it back and experience some sort of distress related to that. We also don't want to judge anything as negative, because then we just want it out of the experience. The power of mindfulness is embracing an entire experience and saying, this is exactly what should be happening. Let me observe this and be curious what it's about. Next time I'm going to talk about gentle curiosity, but that's a key component about mindfulness. We want to observe something with gentle curiosity. When we do, we end up dropping some of these judgments that we have and wanting to hold on to certain things. We kind of incorporate everything. Also, the non-judgmental piece comes along with our own emotions and our own struggles. So we don't want to judge ourselves for that. In fact, we just want to say, I'm human and alive, and so therefore I am experiencing this. So let's just do a quick mindfulness exercise. We'll do an informal one and then a formal one very quickly. An informal one is simply taking one breath Take a deep breath and just kind of notice how it feels. And looking around, now I want you to name maybe 3 shades of blue or green that you see in front of you. And maybe 3 things that you can feel on your skin right now. Just observing. That's it. So in that moment, we were activating our frontal lobe more. I know that's very simple, but every time we do that, we re-cue our brain and we regulate and we ground into the moment. Let's do a formal mindfulness exercise. So I want you guys to all close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, or have a downward gaze. I want you to notice what it's like to be completely still. Something that we don't often do and sometimes can feel kind of weird. So if it does, that's okay. That's just a part of this experience we can be curious about. Noticing what it's like to shift from a state of going and doing to a state of simply being, observing, allowing yourself to slow down your breath, making sure it's slow and smooth, deep and relaxed, allowing the shoulders to hang loose and heavy, the arms hanging loose and heavy, and all the muscles of the face just simply smoothing out. Noticing what that feels like. And then paying attention to all the sounds that we hear around us. Noticing how many sounds you pick up on. Noticing how sounds may ebb and flow. Also noticing how we can tell the direction of sounds, kind of pausing with that gentle curiosity to observe the act of hearing and how our ears work together with our brain to tell us information. Something we don't often stop to think about, but something that helps us greatly. And even feeling ourselves kind of anchored in the chair, the points at which our body is anchored to the earth. Feeling kind of our own weight with that. Observing that that's because of the force of gravity that acts upon us every second of every day. It is so crucial to our being, this constant force. We don't often stop to observe it. Feeling some security in that. Taking one last deep breath. And then as you exhale, simply open your eyes, feeling alert and relaxed. All right, thanks for joining me today. We're going to be having a series of this sponsored by Mind Science Foundation, so we can all exercise our brains during this time. So stay tuned. Next time is going to be all about gentle curiosity, and we're going to move through these different mindfulness practices. Your job is to just simply experience and notice for you what tends to feel right and something that you can practice. All right, so I will see you next time, and thanks for joining. Bye.